Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk some more about the Minoan Procession Fresco, which you see before you. This work is highly controversial, as are all of the reconstructions done by Sir Arthur Evans and his team when they excavated the city of Knossos 100 years ago or so. He was operating at the beginning of modern archaeology, and so this reconstruction is it's highly criticized, highly debated how accurate this is. Only these dark pieces you see here, only these are original. The rest of this is a reconstruction, a fabrication, if you will. So it's hard to say, how much we should, how confident we can be in this reconstruction. However, there's a problem. Beggars can't be choosers. We have so little left to us from the Minoan era that we can't just throw this away. We have to acknowledge it. We have to at least consider it and look at it. So while there is room to criticize, we should also be grateful to Sir Arthur Evans because, he was operating in a day when they were basically cowboys. I mean, compare Arthur Evans to Heinrich Schliemann. Heinrich Schliemann sought Troy for years and years and years. He finally finds the site, and what does he do? He blows it up with dynamite to get down to the layer that he wanted to get to. He blew up eons of history. He even destroyed the layer of the city that he was looking for. So you know what? I'm grateful to Sir Arthur Evans. Is it perfect? No, of course not. Nothing in this world is. But at least he didn't blow it up. And so, with gratitude in our hearts, we're going to look again at the Minoan Procession Fresco, and we're going to see if we can peer into this mysterious past. We raise the dead of this lost civilization. Okay, so this is the Minoan Procession Fresco found in the south corridor at the Palace of Knossos. This would be, as you're entering the palace, coming into the courtyard, you would pass through this hallway and you would see this fresco. Now, there are alternate reconstructions. So you see these dark pieces. As I said, these are the original fragments. And you can see this fragment here doesn't touch this fragment, and it doesn't touch this fragment. So there's dispute whether they should even be ordered in this way. We don't know exactly how this was found because Arthur Evans and his team were operating in the infancy of archaeology. We don't have perfect preservation of how the site was discovered. So we don't know exactly why he chose to position things the way he did, and since they're not attached, we can't be certain that this is the right ordering. So there are alternate reconstructions that don't have, for example, these 3 characters here. Some reconstructions put these 7 characters next to these 11 characters here. Other reconstructions don't have these 2. They believe they may be on another part of the wall, on the opposite wall, behind us, basically. If we were in the hallway staring at the wall, these 2 characters over here might be behind us on the other wall, or they might be around the corner on a different part of the hallway. These are probably the least confident of this procession fresco. These 3 groupings over here are generally considered, from what I've seen and read, they're generally more confident about these, but I have seen reconstructions where these 3 men are placed, to the right of this woman and these 10 men. So in the place of these 2, we're going to have these 3 facing the other way. And that's an interesting idea that everyone should be facing to the right. if these two men are on the hallway behind us, they would be facing to the right, towards the courtyard. If these three men are, whichever side of this group that they're placed, they're facing to the right, that would leave only these four men here facing the wrong way. But there's reasons for that, and I've talked about in previous videos how there is a creation myth of the Cretans, that they are born from the hands of the goddess when she goes into the cave on Mount Ida or Mount Dicte, and she goes into the sacred cave, squats to give birth, presumably to God, because that's how Zeus is born in Greek myth. As she's squatting in the cave, she digs her hand into the earth, and 5 or 10 finger men and 5 or 10 finger women rise from her hands, and then those finger men and finger women give birth to the first 100 people of Crete. So it does seem to be an ancient Cretan creation myth, and this Bronze Age fragment may be related to that tale. That's why we have these 10 men and centered around this woman. Now, these hands, okay, well, I want to be clear here. We don't know if these hand positions are accurate. Not much. This is all a reconstruction. Okay, the only thing we're confident of is the positioning of these characters. We have their feet. Okay, so the number and positioning of these characters, so we do know there's 5 men, or 5 sets of twins, or 10 men in groups of 2, in 5 groups of 2, around this central female character. And we believe she's female because obviously she's wearing a dress, but number 2, her skin is a little bit lighter. You can see her feet and her is a little bit lighter than the other characters. And this is found also at Akrotiri, where we have other remains from the Minoan era that are not reconstructions by Arthur Evans. So we can be confident that when we see these lighter skinned characters, they're female, the darker skin are male. Why is that? That it's an artistic motif found around the ancient Mediterranean. Egypt did it as well. Painted men darker skinned and women lighter skinned. We see that in Southeast Asia. We see that in Mesoamerican art. We see that in medieval Europe. The idea of the tall, dark, and handsome man, the fair-skinned maiden. Why is that? Well, men, in a pre-modern society, men are outside. Men are working the fields. Okay, we're going to get a suntan. Women are inside. Okay, kept away from the harm of the world, the harshness of the world. Sheltered from the sun, not put to work in a field. They are put to work in the home, but they're not put to work in a field. So men are going to just naturally be a little bit darker. Now, this is exaggerated. I mean, I don't think Minoan women were this light-skinned, and it's possible Minoan men were also not this dark. These are exaggerated features, but it's an artistic motif that we find around the world. Men in agrarian, pre-industrial societies are generally portrayed a little bit darker. So, having said that, so we have these 5 men, and we can be confident they're men, around this female figure, and we can be confident she's female. The hand positions may not be accurate. However, we do see this hand positioning in lots of Minoan art. Okay, lots of figurines show the hands like this. And again, because there's this creation myth attached to the Cretans, that's the Greek name for the true Cretans. That's what that means. Cretan means true Cretans. They don't disappear. The Minoans don't disappear at the end of the Bronze Age. They live on well into the Iron Age, well into the era of written history. So they're not a totally lost civilization. We can actually uncover some bits, lots of bits and pieces about them, okay? It's always going to be mysterious, but it's not totally lost. So this hand position, while we can't be certain that these characters would have been portrayed this way, and there are other reconstructions where you will see this female figure holding axes or other items, or these men offering gifts the way these 2 men are. So there are different reconstructions possible, but this type of hand positioning is found a lot in Minoan art. That's probably why Arthur Evans chose to portray them this way. There may have been smudges of pigment on the wall. It's impossible to say because we don't have the site the way he found it. The walls were collapsed, but some bits and pieces of the walls could be reconstructed, and they did have, faint pigment on it, which is part of where he got this reconstruction. So he may have, maybe he saw some smudges on the wall, and maybe these hand positions are accurate. We can't know with 100% certainty. But even if these hand positions are wrong, we know there's 5 sets of 2 men around a central female figure. That could be related to these 5 or 10 finger men around the goddess of Ida. Now, let's go back. So there are alternate reconstructions. Like I said, sometimes these 2 guys are not included. Sometimes these 3 guys are not included. But I will go with an alternate reconstruction in a minute, but let me first address what we have here. If this is accurate, which it may not be, but if it is, I believe we're looking at a winter solstice motif. If we rearrange these pieces, for example, if we get rid of these 2 guys, we get rid of these 3 guys, it could be a summer solstice motif. But I think this is something to do with the solstice. The solar wheel would be one of the most important things in ancient religions. Okay, and let's just take a look at this so that everyone knows what we're talking about here, because not everyone is as familiar with star patterns and star movements. So we see this vertical line just after sunset, just a few hours after sunset. If you roll back a little bit, these stars, the sun sets, the stars are rising, and then finally Sirius is visible. And so right here, when all of the stars in this alignment are now visible, they're pointing vertically at the horizon. If you draw a line from the Pleiades, through Taurus the Bull and the Hyades, through the belt of Orion, through Sirius, this line right here points to where the sun will rise. Let's, it'll be vaguely in line of that, right? Because this is, it's not 100% accurate. If you look at this alignment, actually, like Pleiades, Aldebaran, the stars of Orion's belt, Sirius, it's not a perfect line. It's crooked, but just in general, as big as the sky is, right? Like, it's gonna be like, somewhere around here, right? Well, let's keep going. Boom. The sun rises right there, right where it was pointing. You roll it back. The sun was rising right there. Let's turn the constellations on. Okay, so you see Canis Major and then Canis Minor's over here. You see Orion, the Hunter. You see Taurus the Bull and the Pleiades. Let's put the constellation art on it. And let's go a couple hours so that we get the full thing. And then let's twist this. Okay, so we've got a hunting scene. We got Orion and his hunting dogs, Canis Major, Canis Minor. We got Taurus the Bull, and Orion is battling Taurus the Bull to take possession of the Pleiades, the 7 daughters of Atlas. They symbolize resurrection. Women have a womb, gives birth to other humans. Orion is chasing after the Pleiades and their power of resurrection, the power to save men from death. Okay? Power of resurrection, power to live again. And this solar symbolism is about the birth of the sun in winter. At the shortest day of the year, the sun's power return. Orion rises in the sky to seize the Pleiades, seize the power of resurrection, and restore the world to spring and summer. And the Pleiades are also associated with the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. The Pleiades come up on the horizon right where the sun will rise for the greatest and glorious sunrise of the year. So depending on how you arrange this Minoan fresco, it could be a winter solstice or a summer solstice. The Pleiades are associated with both. In the winter solstice, the Pleiades saved the sun from death. In the summer solstice, the Pleiades herald the sun in its ultimate glory, the greatest sunrise of the year. I believe these are the Pleiades, these 7 figures here. And again, the Pleiades are thought, and they're found in mythology all over the world. 7 stars, but only 6 are visible by the human eye. Now, that shows how powerful oral traditions really are, because that star stopped being visible thousands, tens of thousands of years ago. And yet every culture in the world tells a story that there's actually 7, but you can only see 6. And so in Greek myth, the 7th Pleiades, the 7th sister of the Pleiades, marries a mortal man, and so her light dims. And here we see 7 figures, 6 of them dark-skinned, presumably men, although they're in dresses. We'll get to that. And then the 7th figure, a woman in a dress, light-skinned, probably female. Okay, again, even if we would just go by this original piece here, you can see the light skin of her foot. So they're all in dresses, but they have dark-skinned feet. She has a light-skinned foot. So 7 characters, 1 is different from the other 6. What could this mean? Well, in Minoan art, we often see men and women, well, especially men in women's clothing. We see women in men's clothing sometimes too. So we can go to Acrotiri, and we can see a scene there of a blood sacrifice, an animal offering, where there are men wearing, poofy shorts, and yet there's men on the left wearing dresses, okay, dark skin in a dress. And there's a woman wearing poofy shorts. Her breasts are out, so she's not wearing a dress. She's dressed like the men on the right. So this is not something that is a figment of Arthur Evans's imagination. The Minoans had cross-dressing priests and even priestesses. As I've always said on this channel, I've said it multiple times, I'll say it again. If you want to understand the Minoans, you look to the east. At the time of the first farmers, agrarian settlers came out of the Levant, the northern Levant, Syria, that area, came into Anatolia and then into Greece. If we look at Anatolia, we see the goddess Cybele and her consort Attis. Attis once ruled a great kingdom to the west, but he was exiled into Anatolia. In Greek myth, Rhea gives birth to Zeus and then goes into exile in Anatolia. Rhea is associated with Mount Ida on Crete. Cybele is associated with another Mount Ida in Anatolia. Rhea is equated by the Iron Age Greeks with Cybele. They share a lot of the symbolism, they share a lot of their roles. They are thought to be the same deity. Rhea is just the Cretan version of a deity like Anatolian Cybele. So Attis and Cybele once ruled a great kingdom to the west, exiled into Anatolia. Attis is castrated and murdered. It's very dark. The priests of Cybele castrate themselves to suffer alongside their god, and these priests dress and act as women. If you look further east into Syria, you see the goddess Atargatis. Okay, and we have Iron Age writings from the Romans who talk about Atargatis, how she's an ancient goddess that follows strange ancient Bronze Age traditions where her priests castrate themselves and dress and act as women. So when we look at Minoan art and we see men in dresses, we can get an idea of what might be going on here, and that might explain why, if this is the Pleiades, if I'm right about my interpretation of this, we can explain why, what the difference here is. Why is the 7th star dimmer? If this is the Pleiades, why is it that if this is a female woman with 6 male priests, why does her star dim? Well, I would say if this is the Pleiades, the Minoans maybe they told the story in reverse. Instead of the 7th star dimming, the other 6 stars burn brighter. And why? Because they have made a sacrifice on behalf of God. These are 6 male priests, dark-skinned, as men are portrayed in Eastern Mediterranean ancient art. They have castrated themselves, and we have the Roman writings. These castration rituals are sick, okay, gruesome, okay, public castrations, self-castrations. They do it publicly to themselves in front of everybody. It's really, it's disturbing. But by going through this act, by suffering alongside God, very similar to modern Christians who might engage in acts of stigmata to suffer as Christ has suffered, or to flail themselves on the back to suffer as Christ has suffered. These priests are suffering as their God has suffered. And in so doing, their 6 stars may burn brighter. So even though they're not women, because they've gone through this act of suffering, their stars may burn brighter. So this may be the Pleiades. These 6 men in dresses may represent male priests who have become women, who are suffering alongside the god. And if you go a little bit further, again, these 3 characters may not be in this position. Alternate reconstructions are possible. But if this reconstruction is accurate, if these are the Pleiades, these would be the 3 stars of Orion's belt. Here being portrayed as 3 men, very similar in Christian legend of the 3 wise men that witnessed the birth of God. The 3 stars of Orion's belt witnessed the resurrection of the sun in the winter solstice. They point to where the sun will rise on the shortest day of the year. So as the sun's power wanes in winter, it gets colder, the days grow shorter, the night grows longer, the power of darkness is overcoming the power of light. And only in winter does Orion rise. He's not visible in the summer, but his stars rise above the horizon in winter. And they get to their highest point at the winter solstice, when all seems lost and the world is dying. Orion's belt points to where the sun will rise on the solstice, and from that day forward, the days grow longer. The sun's power returns. Earth warms again, and we enter spring and rebirth. So it's a death and resurrection motif heralded by the Pleiades, pointing through Orion's belt, through the star of Sirius, at the horizon where the sun is born again. So these 3 stars of Orion's belt, these 3 wise men that herald the birth of God, the birth of the resurrection, these are possibly related to the stellar story, the cosmic story of the Pleiades and the Orion's belt and the solstice. And here, if as I was saying it is correct, if this is related to the Ateo-Cretan creation myth, the birth of God and goddess, or the birth of humanity, or the goddess giving birth to humanity, these are the finger men, the dactyls. And she not only would be Mother Ida, but if she is holding her hands up, she's also referencing the Hecaterides, which are the 5 or 10 female companions of the 5 or 10 dactyl men. So you have finger men and finger women. The story is sometimes told 5 men and 5 women, so an androgynous divinity with a male and female hand, and then the hands clasp in union, and when they join together, humanity is born. Creation occurs. In other ways of telling this tale, it may have been 2 distinct beings, a god and goddess, and so in that form, it would be 2 male hands and 2 female hands clasped together, performing the act of creation. But either way, this motif is found in Egypt and in Mesopotamia in the earliest writings, where they use sexual reproduction to explain creation, to explain how divinity regenerates itself. You will have God die. For example, in Egypt, Ra's light fades, and Osiris he dwells in the underworld. He's betrayed by Set, who we might think of as Satan, and he's murdered. He also is castrated and murdered, just like Attis. And Isis, the goddess, has to put the god back together. She assembles Osiris's corpse, has sex with his corpse. Yes, I know, it's weird. And then she gives birth to Horus, who rises again as Ra. Ra Horus, the dawn god form of Ra. So if this, sexual reproduction motif is also occurring here, this represents the rebirth of the sun, the rebirth of Ra, or the Minoan version of Ra, the rebirth of light. Okay? And so if these are the Pleiades pointing through Orion's belt at the sunrise on the winter solstice, this is heralding the resurrection of divinity's light, of God's light, of goddess's light. Okay? So resurrection of the divine light, resurrection of the solar year, using sexual reproduction, using the mother goddess rebirthing spring, okay? Rebirthing the son of the light of God, the dawn of God, the son of God. All of this kind of stuff. These motifs still found today in Christianity. And then the last piece, the most controversial piece, these two characters here. What might they represent? Well, I believe they might be the two North Stars. At the time this fresco was painted, Earth did not have one North Star. Okay, it had two. And actually, for a lot of the last several thousand years, we have had two North Stars. The Earth wobbles on its axis, so north points to different stars at different times in history, and that wobble performs a circle. So our axis spins around a circle. And that circle takes 26,000 years to complete. And so, we will be back. In the earliest writing, Thuban, the star Thuban was the North Star. And, in what, another, 13, 15, 16,000 years? In many thousands of years from now, Thuban will again be the North Star. But at the time this was painted, there were two North Stars. And so this may be a reference. The North Stars, okay, they're found in these North Stars in particular are found in the constellations we Americans call the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper. In Greco-Roman myth, they are Ursa Major and Ursa Minor, the Big Bear and the Little Bear. The Big Bear, by the way, is a female, and the Little Bear is her son, so the mother and her son. Okay, again, these motifs are found everywhere, even in modern times. And this Big Bear and the Little Bear contain the North Stars, and they point towards the Pleiades. And so where are these two men looking? They're looking left. They're the only characters looking left, okay, besides these characters here that are around this goddess or priestess, or who I think it's the goddess, but other interpretations are acceptable. But these two guys looking to the left towards the Pleiades over here, okay? And while we're here, let's talk about the Big Bear and the Little Bear. Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, Big Dipper, Little Dipper. So in Greek myth, this is Callisto, that's the mother bear, and her son Arcus. Arcus is a son of Zeus, a son of God. So a mother and the son of God, placed in the heavens either by Zeus or by Hera, depending on the version of the story you go with. But placed up here in the stars, turned into bears, and into stars. And the very interesting thing about Ursa Major, Ursa Minor, they're circumpolar stars. They never set. They stay above the horizon always. Big Bear and Little Bear, the mother and her son that never die. Eternal resurrection, eternal life. The mother and the son of God. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? So that's what I think we're looking at, if this reconstruction is correct. Now, I will... another possibility for what these two characters represent is the constellation of Gemini, the twins. The stars of Orion's belt, Taurus the bull, and the stars of Gemini are the earliest parts of the zodiac that we have. The Greek zodiac, that doesn't come to us until around 500 BC. But Babylonian star charts go back to around 1100, 800 BC. Around 1100 is when we get the full Babylonian star chart and zodiac. However, the earliest pieces of the Babylonian zodiac date back to 2900 BC, and in that earliest portion, and it's not complete, but that earliest portion of the zodiac, it is Orion's belt, Taurus the bull, and the stars of Gemini. So these stars of Gemini, again, they're related to this cosmic scene. They're part of the way that story is told in Babylonian myth, pointing to the resurrection. So if I'm right about this, that's what this scene represents. Okay, that's just my interpretation. I don't expect the history books to be rewritten, but I believe these are the Pleiades. These are the stars of Orion's belt. This is the sunrise, the resurrection of God's light. And these could be either Gemini or the two north stars. Alternatively, this could be the Hyades. That would be the stars that are part of Orion's, part of the Taurus the bull constellation. Taurus the bull, his stars, it contains a vast collection of stars. It's like a nebula, just like the Pleiades, a cloud of stars, okay? And the Hyades cluster is massive. It contains hundreds of stars. But if this finger men and finger legend is what we're envisioning here, they birth the first 100 people of Crete. Well, the Hyades are hundreds of stars. The ancients may have thought of it as simply 100 stars. And so if this is the Hyades, that could also explain, that would also tie in with the 100 first men of Crete. So a massive number, big number, 100. Lots of stars in Hyades. So that's the mother of everything, the mother of all these stars, the mother of the first 100 people. That could be what we're seeing here. Again, alternate explanations are possible. We can just narrow it down to certain possibilities. So let's discuss some alternative explanations. Let me first criticize my own theory, okay? As I said, first of all, biggest criticism, I don't even know, no one's confident that these two guys belong here. So that could be right out. So they might not be the North Stars. They might not be Gemini. That could be right out. Second criticism, as I said, no one's confident these three characters should be positioned here. They may be positioned over here, which would throw my theory way off, okay? Other reconstructions don't have these three guys here at all, don't have these two guys here at all. They just have these 11 figures and these 7 figures right next to each other. I actually am okay with that interpretation as well. Again, if you go with that interpretation where you just have these 7 and these 11, that would be a summer solstice. That would be the Pleiades heralding sunrise on the longest day of the year, the summer solstice. At dawn on the summer solstice, the Pleiades, they appear on the horizon right where the sun rises. The Pleiades are low on the horizon in the summer solstice, right where the sun rises. So they herald sunrise on the longest day of the year, where the sun's power is at its greatest. So if you want to go with that alternate explanation, or that alternate reconstruction of this fresco, that would still fit into a solstice. It would just be a different solstice, but similar resurrection of light, resurrection of God's light or goddess's light. Similar motif. Now here's another big criticism of my theory. This is backwards. If this is the Pleiades, if this is Orion's belt, if this is the Hyades, and this is either Gemini or the North Stars, this isn't like these. If this is true, then the Pleiades are in the wrong spot. They should be on the right. They should be over here. They should maybe be between these 11 figures and these 2 figures, and they should be facing left. So it's odd that it's backwards, right? Because if this is sunrise on the shortest day of the year, then Pleiades, a line through the Pleiades, through Orion's belt to sunrise, that should be going from the right to the left, not from the left to the right. Now, maybe there's an explanation for that, okay? Because you're heading into the corridor. You're heading down a corridor into the courtyard. Maybe they wanted it in a certain direction. And so maybe they reversed the order for that reason. Or maybe they were trying to say, we're mirroring on Earth, so it's a mirror image of what's in the heavens, so we reverse it. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe I'm just wrong. That's also possible. I can only offer you my interpretation. I don't know if it's 100% correct. It could be winter solstice, could be summer solstice, could be totally wrong. This may be nothing. I mean, maybe I'm just looking at clouds and I'm seeing what I want to see, right? Although, in my defense, okay, this story of the Pleiades and Orion's belt and the Hyades, Taurus the bull, this is the most ancient story known to man. Like I said, it's found in 2900 BC in Babylonian star charts. Writing begins in Mesopotamia only a few centuries before that. So basically, as soon as writing begins, we have the story of the bull of heaven and this resurrection of the solar year. And we can go even further back than writing. We can go to the Lascaux cave, where we have a bull and we have 4 stars, maybe 3 which are Orion's belt and 1 which is the star of Sirius. But we have, possibly Orion's belt, we have Taurus the bull, we have a smudge of stars inside of the bull, possibly relating to the Hyades cluster. And then we have a smudge of stars off to the right, possibly relating to the Pleiades. This painting is 15,000 years old. So this is a most ancient story, and it's found in pagan religions all over the world. All right, I'll leave you with one final thought. Let's go to Google AI. Could the Minoan Procession Fresco depict a solstice scene? While there is no definitive consensus among archaeologists that the Minoan Procession Fresco at Knossos explicitly depicts a solstice scene, several theories connect its imagery and the ritual it represents to seasonal and solar cycles. Number 1, there is solar symbolism in garments. Research into the patterns of the garments of the figures in the fresco suggests the use of solar and stellar symbols. Some scholars argue that the spirals frequently seen on Minoan textiles and pottery represent the sun's path from one solstice to another, with double spirals symbolizing the increasing and decreasing curves of the sun's journey throughout the year. Number 2, ritual context and timing. The fresco, which depicts a long line of gift bearers approaching a central figure, likely a priestess or a goddess, is widely believed to record a real-world ritual. Summer solstice rituals. Some interpretations suggest that such mystery plays or rituals at the Knossos temple occurred during the summer solstice. The Great Year. Theories regarding a Minoan calendar propose that major ritual cycles were anchored by the winter and summer solstices, coinciding with specific moon phases to mark an 8.5-year Great Year. Architectural alignment. The orientation of the Palace of Knossos itself supports the idea of solar-focused rituals. While the east-west axes of the courts are oriented toward the sunrise 5 days, there's that number again, 5 days, 5 dactyls, 5 hecatarides, 5 days before the vernal equinox, other Minoan palaces, like Zakros, were oriented specifically to the northernmost and southernmost risings of the moon and sun, corresponding to solstice points. The throne room at Knossos also shows alignment with celestial bodies, suggesting that the ceremonies depicted in frescoes were timed to specific astronomical events. 4. Recent archaeological context. As of 2026, new discoveries of Bronze Age circular structures on Crete, such as on Papura Mountain, have reinforced the view that the Minoans lived in close dialogue with the heavens, tracking solstices and embedding these rhythms into their ritual art and life. So, can't prove it, but there's good reason to believe this could be related. So, I leave you this theory as something to think about. Take it or leave it, Share your ideas in the comments. Criticisms welcome. Happy to hear it. And then we can see each other again in the next video. See ya.